because I wanted to show you my reading system for how I collect data for my students. I collect my data online for pretty much everything, reading, writing, and math. I do online data collection for myself, and then my students have their own data collection sheets. So this first one, this is actually a really complicated one. If you are not used to collecting data, I would not recommend you start with this one. I actually would recommend that you start with one of our other ones that are just more simple, really basic, just to get you and your students um, used to collecting data. And then you can kind of up your systems to these more intense ones like this one or like the ones that I'm going to show you today. So this one is student reading data sheet. You can see I have a spot for the goal, when they reach the goal, what they get, and also has a spot for the students to make their own goal. Now, I always do these, I print these and I put them in my students' actual binders. I'll put a link down below so you can watch a video of how I do a student binder, a really basic student binder with all their data collection sheets inside of it. But when I'm setting these up with my students, I like to do a little conference with them. And I always do these for half the year. So I do a conference at the beginning in August, and those data sheets run until December. And then I do another conference in January, and those data sheets run until May. I like to break up the year that way because it gives the students, it makes it not feel so overwhelming and so long. And I'm able to set smaller goals with them and reward them more often. We do a big year halfway through the year, a big party halfway through the year and a big party at the end of the year for students who have met their goals or students who tried really hard and got close to their goals. Okay, sorry, I wanted to make this a little bit bigger. So the first thing that we do is I set up with my student, I go over what their reading goal is. Now, again, remember this one is going to be from January to May. And it all depends, obviously, on their IEP goal. So for this student in May, I wanted to be reading 80 words per minute. And we decided that when they reach their goal 3 times, they get 5 cents. And when I say reach their goal, I'm talking about the goal that they set for themselves down here. And they have to reach their goal 3 times. For this student, I would not have them do it 3 times in a row. You can, it just depends on your student's needs and what motivates them. For this student, it's just 3 times in general. So then the next thing I do is I mark that line and show them, okay, this is your end goal. This is where you're trying to get to by the end of the year. And then the next thing we do is I take their first data points and I say, okay, your first score is 45 words per minute. Here's the date. I mark it on here, or I have them mark it. And then I like to draw their trajectory and say, this is the line that you are trying to stay above. It's okay if you go a little bit below it. You'll kind of go up and down, and that's totally normal. That's fine. But this is the overall goal. Now, the reason why I like to draw this trajectory for the students is because it helps set mini goals for them. So, for example, I always say to my students, okay, so you got 45 this time. What's your goal for the next time? And I would put that down here. And some of my students will be like, well, I want to go up 10 words per minute, or I want to go up 5, or they just get really nervous and they're like, well, I don't know. Then we can just look at this trajectory and say, okay, well, let's look. You want to be about right here, and look, that's about 1 or 2 words more than what you did last time. So let's set it for 1 or 2 words. Then we write that goal down there, 47 words. And I really love this system because then all week I'll say to my students, what's your goal? And they can look at their sheet if they need to, or they just tell me 47 words. Okay, what are we working on today? And it just reminds them that everything we're doing is for a purpose. It's to help them to read better. It's to help them to read more fluently. It's to help them to read with better accuracy. So I really love this system. So this is what it looks like when it's filled out a little bit more. Again, I do not do this on the computer. My student data sheets, I always do in the binder. And we do this all by pencil and by hand. So, so here my students set their goal of 47 words. And they actually read 48. So they reached their goal that time, so we highlight it. And then the next time they set a goal, okay, well, this time I want to do 49. And they actually read 50, so we highlighted it. And then they set another goal of 52 words per minute. This time they only read 50. It's okay, we just didn't highlight it that time. The next time they set a goal of 51. They met it, they got 53, so we highlighted it. So at that point, they would have met their goal 3 times, and so they would get their class reward of 5 cents, which we do classroom money. So they would get their goal of 5 cents. Again, this is just really helpful for the students to see a really clean picture to track their own data. And it really encourages and pushes that independent learners, which is what we are really big on in Resource Teacher's Guide. So this is what it looks like when I am tracking my own data on my computer. Sometimes I'll show this to my students if I want them to see the trend line, but usually this is just for me. So you can see, let's go over this. Let's go over this first. So this is the graph this is my reading graph for my student. I usually have their name right here. I also have their name down here at the tab at the bottom. And everything tracks for me. It does everything for me. So this blue line, this is the student's goal line. This green dotted line is their trajectory. This is the student's word per minute right here. On bottom, this is weeks. And then this dark green line, this is the trend line. So this tells me if they continue on the path that they're going, are they going to meet their goal? And if they are, when are they going to meet that goal? So up here, I have to put in weeks just because the way that Google Sheets is, I get a little bit finicky, and it's just easier for me to put the weeks in and put the date in as well. It's just easier for the graph. That's the only reason why I do it. So if I'm like, oh, on the 8th they read 50, or on week 8 they read 56, what date was that? I can just come up here and go to week 8 and I can see the date right there. But this is what it looks like when you are going, once you have stuff in. If you decide that you want to use this system or try it out in your classroom, this is what it will look like when you download it. And then what you do is you're going to put your goal in right here. So let's go with 80 again for the student. And automatically it will put it will duplicate that end goal down here. So you're going to see it's going to plot your end goal right away right here. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my first data point. So let's say on the 8th was my first data point back. My student read 45 words per minute with, let's say, 90% accuracy. Oops. And then you can see it automatically will map out the trajectory for you so that you know every week this is where your student needs to be for them to be able to hit their goal by the end of the year. Now, my students, remember, I track them halfway. I track my students' data for me for the entire year in one place. So this has all the months on year. The gray parts you just kind of ignore. The white parts is what I need. The notes section down here is where I'll put any information I need, like if they have significant absences, and I always make sure I track that. If I'm noticing patterns in their reading or they're missing a specific skill, then I'll start tracking that. With some of my students, if they have extra goals that I want to be tracking, I'll add that underneath accuracy as well. Or you can just add it in the notes if you want. But I like very clean cut data, and so sometimes I'll just put that in the bottom so I can be tracking everything in one spot. And then just as you go, so let's say the next time I test them is the 16th and they got 47, you can see it automatically again plots for you, and it automatically will put that trend line in for you to tell you if they continue on that path, where and when they're going to hit their goal. Yeah, so that's it. If I want to change the name again, I can double click here. And I will change that right here. If ever you need to change anything, it's going to be as customization. You just double click the graph and go to customize. So let's say I'm going to move this to the middle because it's bugging me. So anyways, I put the student name right here, and then I always put the student name on the tab down here as well, right here, if you guys can see that. Also, if you want to do this for multiple students, you can right click and then click duplicate, and it will automatically make a copy for you. So you don't have to recreate this every time. You just duplicate it. And yeah, that's it. So that's how I track my data online for my students, and also how my students track their own data. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, go to our Instagram, follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our Facebook group, all the things. All the links will be down below in our video. And thanks again.